Shalom Alaikum and good evening, and thank you Dr. Rashid Arim for creating such a platform to discuss one of the most challenging phases of our life, which we discuss for sustainable development. I am going to present today for the topics called carbon footprinting and carbon neutrality. So, well, before that, I move to the presentation. Let me discuss, like, we keep on talking about the certain figures quoted by some others, journals or scientific data. How many of you agree within this audience that really climate change is happening? Well, I think this is a good number, and because we should not only be going with these figures from somewhere else and then just start believing on this. We should have to also realize that something is happening. So, can I just well, personally also I do feel that climate change in our age, like, we have realized in 30 years or 35 years of our lifespan that it's really visible. We can see within our surroundings or within even in a national geography that whether the climate is changing over a period of time or not. So let me come to the what it is causing. So basically, this is because of the global warming which is happening, and this global warming is upward temperature trend across the entire globe since the early 20th century and the most notable since late 1970s. So to be precisely, it has been compared with the pre-industrialized scenario, how the environment was there and how it is after the industrialization took place in the last 100 years or so. And when we can see that because of that, then this climate pattern is changing. And the climate pattern, the long-term change in the Earth's climate, especially a change due to an increase in the average atmospheric temperature. And climate change encompasses changes such as the sea level rise, ice mass loss, melting glaciers, changes in the precipitation patterns, delay in the flowers bloomings, and so on. So, well, let's talk about the certain figures then. So, the global warming is measures in terms of the technical terms that, okay, whether the temperature is rising because of what the CO2 level increased in the global atmosphere. So what was the CO2 level before the industrialized level and what is the CO2 level today? So if we see that it has reached to 407, which was in the pre-industrialized scenario around 280 parts per million, ppm. And it's continuously increasing. So certainly, so we have to believe that, yes, in the last 1 century, there has been the changes due to the industrialization, which is causing the global warming and the climate is changing. Then similarly, like the temperature also, since 1880s till today, global average temperatures has risen 1.7 degree Fahrenheit or degree centigrade. And talking about the Arctic ice, it has reduced to 13.2% on decadal basis. And most recently, there has been the last year, there has been the crack in the glacier for around 112 kilometers, which is 100 meters wide. So all these evidence are not such some things which were for sometimes this used to be considered that, okay, maybe it is driven by the certain set of the people for some reason, but now we have to believe it. It is happening actually. And still, if we don't want to believe and we don't want to take an action, certainly that in the coming generations are going to say one day that probably our forefathers were not wise enough to think for us. So let's take certain measures so that it can be minimized and leave a good earth or good planet for the succeeding generations. Well, this is the one image for the 1984 for Arctic sea ice and then 2016. So if you will see, for the 1984, the size of Arctic sea ice, and then now in the 2016, you can see that. So these are visible changes. We cannot ignore it for the longer time. We have to believe it or not. Similarly, glacier melt in Alaska. So these are the image of 1920 and 1940s in the upper side of image. And then in the August 2005, you can see that there is no ice visible on the mountains. Changes are happening. Maybe it is not visible on day-to-day basis, 1 day or 2 days or 1 year, but if you see in the span of 8 decades, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, then yes, these are happenings. So we have to believe on these facts. The things that which I was quoting earlier, that this is the crack in the Antarctic Peninsula, which is around 112 kilometers long and 100 meters wide. It is the recent last year's November. So well, beyond that, in January, there were around 18,000 pairs of adult penguins produced just 2 surviving chicks for the season. Just for the 2 out. 18,000 penguins producing the 2 chicks. There is something that's changing. And then a recent National Geographic video showed that starving polar bear on Iceland. This is the condition which is happening actually. So what we have to do? How is the world responding to these things? So then to mitigate these impacts, so there has to be the global platform and action has to be taken all together by the countries, not by the singles, one nation, because climate is not something which is limited to the one nation. It's everybody's proper. Everybody is right to have the right good climates.